In case you just wandered in from outside, this is a symposium called The Burning Bush, Seeing the Sacred in Science. It's brought to you by the Swedenborg Scientific Association and the Theistic Science Group. We did this 6 years ago, but we're acting like we've never done it before. We forgot everything about it before. So we're sort of organized. Bear with us. Each of the speakers is going to introduce the speaker behind him coming up. So I think this will work. My name's Reuben Bell. I'm not in charge of anything. I'm just doing the introduction. And then we'll move on to our speakers. And I think you have a program somewhere that'll tell you about them. The little handout is just for you to take home. You see, I'm going back to the past. I'm going to do what's called a lecture. See that screen? I'm not going to use it. PowerPoint essentially is evil. We know that. And it has a purpose, but for this day, I don't need it. I'm just going to do what they used to call a lecture with a handout, okay? I did that for 10 years here, and then they ran me off, so I guess I should have modernized to PowerPoint, but I never did. So, thank you for being here. This is a wonderful idea. We never know how many people might show up. I was very, optimistic in the number of handouts I produced, and I think actually it was a pretty good idea. So, thanks for being here. I want to thank all the people who helped organize this thing. There's people all over the place, particularly Lisa Childs, who does everything. And she does it very quietly, very humbly. You never know she's there, but everything works. And to her, we need to really give some serious thanks. Lots of helpers, too. I don't mean to ignore them. Now, all that we do here today can be traced back to a single man. Really can. 12 years ago, a guy named Ron Horvath, who a lot of you probably don't know, teamed up with Ian Thompson, who's over here, and Steve Smith, who's somewhere right there, to discuss a problem that had been bothering him for 20 years. In his words, how the divine in a non-dimensional realm creates time and space and all that is within it, and is presented in a way that a rational mind can understand. He wanted to know that. Okay, they called their little discussion group the Creation Project. And it set out to find, again, in Ron's words, a plausible, rational explanation for the creation that would appeal to those who were open to the idea of spirituality, but who were unable to get beyond the literal interpretation of Genesis. In other words, he wanted to take this to the people who could then understand it. Now, I want you to, on the little handout is a URL from YouTube. It's Ron giving his introduction 6 years ago, standing right here. It's short. I want you to go find it later, because he'll explain a lot about himself, which I don't have time to do. He's one of those guys that was walking along, and the new church fell on his head. And he said, wow, what was that? And the rest of his life was different. So you need to hear him tell it. It's great. So that happens to people, you know. Unfortunately, not a lot, but it is happening all over the place. So it's very important. Please go there. Now we, the people, the presenters here, often stray from the path of that single purpose into our several corners of science, which might be physics, might be mathematics, psychology, in my case, biology. But our investigations all seem to lead back to Ron's original quest, which is the hard problem. Now, the hard problem is something that's well known to all scientists, pretty much, especially mind scientists. It's the interaction of spirit and nature. How does that work? Mind and brain. How does that work? Tons of books have been written about it. Nobody yet has a clue. That's why they call it the hard problem. They can work all the stuff out from this side and that side, but that is a hard problem. All right. So, since he was so interested in that hard problem, we're going to kind of dedicate the proceeds of this symposium to Ron Horvath, who cannot be here today. He passed into the spiritual world earlier this year. He wasn't done. He gave us an email saying, I got about 3 weeks to go, and then we're back in action. And then about 3 days later, he passed into the spiritual world, where he's still working feverishly to figure out this problem. So, the burning bush, that's what we named this symposium. Seeing the sacred in science. Now, why the burning bush? Well, we argued a lot. What, of course, new church people do argue a lot. And here, let me move this thing. We argued about it, and we decided it was a good image. Good grief. I have a pile of hymnals here as a lectern. There, that'll work. This has been here forever, and it has always been too short. It's always too short. All right, why the burning bush? Because this image serves as the perfect metaphor for what we're intending to do. Although the bush Moses saw was indeed on fire, Genesis chapter 3 says, "Behold, the bush was burning with fire, but the bush was not consumed." And then Moses said, "I'll now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush does not burn." So when the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, God called to him from the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." There was a bush. It was on fire. But God himself was in that bush, you see. That's what made it different. So, here's an image of a natural thing, a bush, a bramble bush, Andy is going to explain to you, and a natural process, which is just fire, carbon combining with oxygen, okay? But not without a spiritual presence within it to make the image work. The bush, it was on fire, so what? We could set a bush out here on fire today. We get in trouble, but it would prove my point. It's just a bush on fire. But what if the Lord were in that bush? You see, that's the difference. This spiritual presence in all things and the processes is what a theistic scientist looks to discover at work in the natural world. Each of us today, we speakers, will tell you about our own burning bush experience, our own burning bush moment. Sometimes it's abrupt, like when the new church fell onto Ron's head, and other times it's gradual, but it's a burning bush moment. When our own experience revealed the sacred in science. Okay? We'll tell you about that. And we want to explain to you how what we're doing ourselves is part of that whole project that Ron wanted us to work on. We'll tell you how we do it. I do it differently than Steve. Steve does it differently from Ian. Ian does it differently from Andy. There's Andy. And we all do it differently, but we're all doing the same thing. That's what I want to point out. So, theistic science is not a new idea at all. Of course not. Until the Enlightenment period, which I would more rather call the endarkenment period, but we can't get into that. Until it quietly dismissed spirit from nature, and until the Darwinian tsunami swept all previous theories of natural science off the table. Okay? Prior to that, the spiritual basis of natural reality was a given for scientists, or natural philosophers as they were called. See the quotation from Swedenborg's Principia. I'm not going to labor you by reading it to you. That's what PowerPoint is for, you know. Put a slide up, read it. Put a slide up, read it. I'm not doing that. But see that thing. It's important that you do see that thing. Even then, that was 1734, I think. Even then, this affirmative attitude was already being obscured, kind of attacked, really, by the clouds of skepticism, materialism, and the plain old denial of God at work in the world. Now, well, science canceled God, okay? And science has suffered since. But after 300 years of darkness, the pendulum is slowly swinging back again, as pendulums do. Theistic science, in new clothes perhaps, but theistic science nonetheless, is returning. Scientists in all disciplines are discovering that materialism just can't go the distance. Scientists in all disciplines have discovered that. Can't take them to ultimates, to the very ultimates that their own research is leading them to. They've discovered things they can't describe or explain in scientific terms. So they stop. And that's kind of where we are right now. They got a problem. As Swedenborg says in his introduction to the Principia, there you go, true philosophy, he says, and contempt of the deity are two opposites. They cannot exist together. True philosophy. By that he's talking about science. Again, see the handout. Swedenborg anticipated this moment, this period of time, in the prologue to the Animal Kingdom, one of my favorite passages in all the things he ever wrote. And I'm going to read that. You've got it in front of you. Let us gird up our loins for work. 1742. Experience is at our side with a full horn of plenty. The 9 virgins are present also, adorned with the riches of nearly 2,000 years. I mean all the sciences, by whose abundance, powers, and patronage the work is constructed. The sciences are indeterminate and of no profit or advantage unless they be applied and made subservient to uses. What is knowledge of numbers, ratios, figures, forms, in arithmetic and geometry, apart from its benefits to life? What are the philosophical sciences with their predicates, qualities, modes, accidents, without reference to reality? All things at the present day stand provided and prepared and await the light. The ship is in the harbor. The sails are swelling. The east wind blows. Let us weigh anchor and put forth to sea. And we're finally doing that. I'm proud to say that we're finally doing that today. So welcome aboard. Thank you.